Hi there everyone, welcome back to On the Flip Side. My name is Adam Shawwalker, your host, and today I've got another non-review for you guys. I've been asked over the years for recommendations for songs to listen to and just stuff that I think that people should check out. So in the spirit of just shouting out stuff that I have really enjoyed and I think more people should hear, here are 10 tracks that I think you should listen to. I'm not necessarily going to be focusing in on any one genre in particular, nor will I be sticking to new releases. These are just songs that I think are worth checking out. Okay, I kind of wanted to start this list off with something a little bit left field. Ravid Kahalani's Yemen Blues is a really outstanding collaborative effort from musicians all over the world, from New York City to Tel Aviv and Uruguay, just for the main core of the band, with many rotating members from many other diverse locations and backgrounds. And what that results in is this self-called new culture music that is one of the best blends of culture that I think exists, and it manifests in one of the actual most breathtaking and heart-crushing tracks that I've ever heard. Trape la Verite, or translated in English, Catch the Truth, is at its core a very simple song, and yet it is dense and it is heavy in the broadest sense. The lyrics are in Haitian Creole, which I'm pretty sure is a dialect of French, but translated, the theme of the song basically boils down to the thoughts of one side of a relationship that is breaking down. There is a rift forming, and it's not born out of malice or ill will. There is just a distance that is slowly growing greater and greater. And so this concept builds and builds until in the lyrics they basically say, I cannot find the words to express everything that I'm feeling, so let the sounds from my mouth get what I can't say across. Which then leads into one of the hardest hitting vocal performances I have ever heard. It is stunning, it is painful, it is fantastic. On top of just this track, the album itself is quite good. Kahalani really does have an excellent sensibility for finding talent, because these songs, while they all have familiar elements, don't exactly sound like anything from this world. Still got my fingers crossed that one day we'll get a vinyl release. There's a few songs on this list that I wasn't quite sure of because the artists were or are quite large, but I figure since this isn't exactly a massive song like some of the other tracks on this album, that this would be okay. Frankie Goes to Hollywood are perhaps one of the best bands to come out of the studio band era of Hollywood breakout stars and industry-created bands. In October of 1984, Welcome to the Pleasuredome was slated to be a #1 hit album on the UK charts with a reported 1 million units sold in advance. In reality, it only sold about 250,000 copies in its first week. However, that did not stop this album from being a top 10 internationally charting record in multiple markets. I think that most people remember Welcome to the Pleasuredome for its singles, that being War, Two Tribes, and of course Relax, which I'm pretty damn sure is one of the most iconic synth-pop tracks of all time, or at least one of the most iconic tracks of the 80s, but past that, the title track for Welcome to the Pleasuredome is a nearly 14-minute long opus for the entire era. From its opening minutes of strange sounds that sound like they were captured in an aviary to its breakout dance beat, this song start to finish is one of the best dance tracks I've ever heard. The vocal work is great, the bass line and drums hit hard, and the guitar work throws in these exceptionally well thought out fills and adds just a flair of shimmery, reverbed out notes in just the right spots. And the funny thing is with this song that for being a synth pop band, this song is incredibly forward thinking with a very prog rock like approach to song structure. Really, this track is like 3 or 4 songs in one from beginning to end, which really becomes more and more apparent on subsequent listens. Anyway, if you've only heard Relax, I think Welcome to the Pleasuredome as a song and even as an album are really worth a listen. While I don't think it's an exceptionally strong album past like the first 5 tracks, I do still think it is a really notable album that people skim over because they've already heard the big song from this thing. Man, The Gold Experience by Prince might be my favorite Prince record, and a lot of the reason why is the opening track, Pussy Control. And I know people are going to question me going with this over Purple Rain or even 1999, but I just love the attitude that this album runs with. Pussy Control is just a complete house demolisher. I mean, it is really impressive that Prince was able to make a track about female empowerment bang so goddamn hard, but that's what they did. Anyway, this song rips, and I wish I heard it brought to the table more in discussions about Prince's musical output. Nile are one of those bands that I could never get super into at an album level. I just never felt that they were able to maintain a consistent level of quality from start to finish on most of their albums, even though they do still have some incredibly high-tier death metal tracks under their belt, and indeed some of the best death metal tracks in the genre. And I think one of the major exceptions to this trend is their 1994 demo, Worship the Animal, the title track of which is one of the most well put together death metal tracks out there. And it's not because it's incredibly technical or impressive on the writing end of things, but because it is just so simple yet so heavy all the way through, and it almost lays entirely in the fact that the drums on this song are some of the biggest sounding drums I've heard on any recording. Also, the vocal work here is completely animalistic and sounds like they really want you to feel like you're in danger. It's great. Really love this track. I don't know if it's come up before, but Soul Coughing is absolutely one of my favorite bands of all time. They have possibly a perfect catalog. And while I haven't always loved Mike Doty's solo work, with a lot of his output I find being somewhat spotty, I do think his sound and style are what made Soul Coughing so goddamn good in the first place. Anyway, Unmarked Helicopters was available on Songs in the Key of X, which is a compilation that was a collection of tracks that were inspired by and or written for the X-Files. And track 3, Unmarked Helicopters, is one of the best tracks on the whole goddamn thing. Until the 2002 compilation Lust in Phase, that was the only place you could get that track. Of course, now it is much easier to find B-sides like this song, but even still, Unmarked Helicopters as a track is good enough to go toe-to-toe with the best songs in their catalog. Circles, Super Bon Bon, Screenwriter's Blues, all of these tracks are just so solid, and Unmarked Helicopters is no different. Despite being one of the most popular Sleaford Mods tracks, I still think that more people should check this one out. Jason Williamson is one of the most aggressively British people that I think exists. In an alternate timeline, I could see him held in a public exhibit like an animal in a zoo with a microphone just kind of spitting out some of the wildest, angry and relatable lines you've ever heard. Sleaford Mods is to Death Grips as Seinfeld is to The Sopranos. And I know that sounds like nonsense, but just think about it. I think I'm onto something there. Anyway, Jobseeker as a track is terribly relatable, from just being cynical and angry and incredibly clever about the day-to-day urge to just be a complete fucking drain on society. And on top of that, it's just a very catchy track. Most people, I think, will know Chris Connelly for his role as lead vocalist for the Revolting Cocks on the albums Beers, Steers, and Queers, as well as Linger Fickin' Good. But beyond just those two frankly excellent records, Chris Connelly has had a really prolific career as a solo artist that I think goes unfortunately under-recognized. Just on his own, he's got like 23 solo albums as of right now, and the ones that I've listened to, I've really been enjoying. And even though for some reason only a fraction of his work is currently available on Spotify when it used to be like all of them, I think if you can find his albums out there in the wild, you should check them out. And I think that there are tracks from Chris Connelly that I like better than this one, but I do think Union Canal Blues off of 2017's Art and Gender is one of the best in a broader theme and style. Also, I'm probably not the first person to make this comparison, but like holy shit, his output scratches the very same itch that I had for David Bowie's work. Frankly, that might be one of the reasons he's not as recognized, because there are strong comparisons to be made between the two as far as vocal delivery is concerned. On top of having one of the best band names that I've ever heard, Denver's very own Foreskin 500 are probably the most slept-on underground industrial group out there. I mean, fuck, their first show ever, they opened up for Pigface. That's actually insane. And while I do think King Candy Cane really embodies the mood of this album pretty well, in truth, I think all of Mustache Ride as an album is worth listening to, very simply because it is just completely unhinged. Also, that album cover. Fuck. Anyway, give that album a listen, and if you don't have the time, just at least check out that track, King Candy Cane, because it's like if the Melvins went on like more of an industrial path as opposed to that grungy sludge. As Nasty as They Wanna Be is probably the essential Miami bass record, but you may not realize it has the absolute best sample use I've ever heard of Guns N' Roses or Van Halen on the 10th track, The Fuck Shop. The artistic merit of this album might not be immediately obvious due to the beyond raunchy lyrics, which I fucking love, but where the real value lays is the excellent sample work. I think a lot of people really write off sample-based rap, but this is one of the best tracks that I can point to when it comes to the Doubters. You know, I think a lot of people look at Skinny Puppy and the songs that come to mind are Smothered Hope or Assimilate, and that's fine, but I think Rabies as an album is one of the best collections of tracks that they've put together. And as much as I love tracks like Warlock or Tin Omen off of this same record, I think the track Fascist Jock Itch is one of the absolute highlights for this release. It is intensely aggressive and fast-paced with some of the most insane drum fills I have ever heard. And I'm sure this is all drum machine, but still, everything about this track is just firing on all cylinders. I love the Hellraiser samples, I love the fast tempo, the explosive breakdowns are fantastic. Anyway, that's pretty much the list for now. I think I'm gonna try and update this every once in a while, maybe monthly I'll throw one of these up, just to give people some suggestions on things to listen to that aren't necessarily new releases or full albums. I said before in a post that this next week or so is kind of slow for releases that I'm interested in covering, so I'm probably not going to be putting up any new review videos for maybe a week or so, just because I really don't want to force out something that I'm not happy with. There's been a few times where I put up reviews about albums that I just really did not have any actual substantial thoughts about, and you can tell, so as an alternative to that, I'm going to do my best to get up uploads like this one that are a little bit less focused, but are hopefully still fun for you guys. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching along this far. Let me know what songs I should check out in the comments below, and let me know what you guys thought of these songs. Remember to like and subscribe, and if you like what I'm doing here, drop a tip in the PayPal, check out my Instagram, my Reverb, and my Depop. Links to all of those are in the description below. Thank you all so much again, and we'll see you on the flip side.